I was holding my father's hand in that hospital room when he looked at me with those tired eyes and whispered something I did not understand at the time. He said, "Do not worry about Kelly, son. I made sure everything is taken care of." His voice was weak, barely above a breath. Outside in the hallway, Kelly stood with her arms crossed, watching us through the glass window. Her expression was cold, calculating. Something about that moment felt wrong, but I pushed the feeling away. 3 days after we buried him, Kelly gathered the family in the living room and made her announcement. "Your father and I discussed everything," she said, her voice sharp and confident. "As his wife, I am entitled to the house, the business, all of it." My sister Emma went pale beside me. I felt my stomach drop. That was when I realized the journey from trust to heartbreak had truly begun. Before I take you through what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with family drama over inheritance, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to hear how this one ends. Because what my dad left behind was not just money or property. My childhood was not easy, but it was filled with love. Mom died when I was 12 and Emma was 10. A drunk driver ran a red light one rainy Tuesday evening, and just like that, she was gone. Dad suddenly found himself alone with 2 kids to raise. He worked double shifts at his small construction company, Morrison Construction, trying to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. I remember him teaching me to drive his old pickup truck when I turned 16. He took me to an empty parking lot on a Sunday morning and said, "A man takes care of his family. Jake, remember that." Those words stuck with me. Every Sunday night without fail, Dad would make pancakes for Emma. It did not matter how exhausted he was from the week. He would stand at that stove flipping pancakes, making her smile. We were not rich, but we had each other. Dad made sure we never felt alone. When I was 24, about 4 years ago, Dad met Kelly through mutual friends at a barbecue. She was 38 at the time, 15 years younger than him. She had been divorced for 2 years and had no children. The first time we met her was at an olive garden near our house. She wore a simple blue dress and smiled a lot. She asked about my job as a software engineer, seemed genuinely interested when I explained coding projects. She asked Emma about working as a pediatric nurse, listening carefully to stories about the kids in the hospital. Honestly, she seemed nice. Dad looked happier than I had seen him in years. His eyes lit up when she laughed. Emma and I talked about it later that night. We both agreed Dad deserved happiness after everything he had been through. They dated for 8 months before getting married. The wedding was small, held in our backyard with about 30 guests. It was simple but warm. I remember Dad dancing with Kelly to "At Last" by Etta James, and he looked genuinely content. Emma caught the bouquet and joked about finding her own happiness someday. Kelly moved into Dad's 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Portland. That house held all our childhood memories. My old room still had posters on the walls. Emma's room still had her stuffed animals on the shelf. The first year seemed normal enough. Kelly cooked Sunday dinners, pot roast and mashed potatoes, green beans from the garden. She and Dad took trips together. They went to Yellowstone one summer, sending us pictures of geysers and buffalo. They drove to the Grand Canyon the next fall. Kelly came to family gatherings, brought desserts, chatted with relatives. But looking back, there were small signs I ignored at the time. She would ask Dad about finances in ways that felt too specific. "How much is the business worth? Robert, could you retire early and sell the company?" When Dad was not around, Kelly's warmth toward Emma and me cooled noticeably. She would answer our questions with short responses, avoid eye contact. I told myself it was just an adjustment period. Blending families takes time, I reasoned. The second year brought visible changes. Dad started having health problems. His heart was weak, doctors said. They told him to reduce stress, take it easy. But stress was hard to avoid when Kelly started taking control of everything. She changed passwords on their joint bank accounts. She convinced Dad to add her name to the house deed, saying it was what married couples do. She began limiting our visits, telling us Dad needed rest, not visitors. One afternoon I stopped by unannounced. I heard Kelly on the phone in the kitchen. "Once the house is in my name, we will be set," she said. The moment she saw me standing in the doorway, her tone shifted completely. "Oh, just talking to my sister," she said with a fake smile. I felt uneasy but did not want to upset Dad by bringing it up. When I mentioned my concerns to him later, he just patted my shoulder. "Kelly has been good to me, Jake. Do not worry so much." 6 months before Dad passed away, he was hospitalized for the first time. A mild heart attack, the doctors called it, though it felt anything but mild to us. Dad looked so small in that hospital bed, wires and tubes connected to machines that beeped steadily. Kelly would not let Emma and me into the ICU at first. Family only, she snapped at the nurse's station. "I am his wife." Emma lost her temper. "We are family," she shouted in the hallway, her voice breaking. People stared. Kelly eventually backed down but set strict limits. 15 minutes per day, she said coldly. Dad was losing weight, his face gaunt and pale. But he always tried to smile when we visited, asking about our lives, our jobs. During one visit, he leaned close and whispered, "I need to talk to Mr. Harrison soon." Mr. Harrison was his lawyer, someone Dad had worked with for 20 years. Before I could ask what he meant, Kelly interrupted. "You need rest, Robert, not business talk." She ushered us out. When Dad came home from the hospital, Kelly hired a private nurse. The nurse followed Kelly's orders strictly and refused to let us visit without permission. "Mrs. Roberts' orders," the nurse would say at the door. I called multiple times, but Kelly always answered. "He is sleeping. I will tell him you called." Dad never called back. Emma cried on my couch one evening, her face red and puffy. "Something is wrong, Jake," she said. "She is keeping us away from him." I knew she was right. The next day I drove to the house unannounced, determined to see my father. Kelly answered the door with an annoyed expression. "This is my house now," she said, blocking the entrance. "Robert added my name to the deed." I pushed past her. "I need to see my dad," I said firmly. Dad sat in a wheelchair by the window, looking out at the yard where we used to play catch. He turned slowly when he heard my voice. "Jake," he said weakly, his hand reaching for mine. "Son." Kelly hovered nearby. 5 minutes, she said. "He needs his medication." I knelt beside Dad's wheelchair, holding his thin hand. He squeezed my fingers with what little strength he had left. "I fixed everything," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Do not worry. Mr. Harrison knows." I did not understand what he meant, but something in his eyes looked peaceful, resolved. "Time is up," Kelly announced, tapping her watch. October came with falling yellow leaves and cooler air. I remember the date because it was a Tuesday, the same day of the week Mom had died years before. Kelly called at 6 in the morning. "Your father passed away in his sleep," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reporting the weather. Emma and I rushed over, but Dad's body had already been taken away. Kelly had made all the arrangements without consulting us. She planned a small funeral, claiming Dad wanted something simple. Only a handful of people attended. Frank, one of Dad's oldest friends, pulled me aside after the service. "Your dad talked about you all the time," he said, his eyes wet. "He was so proud of you and Emma." Frank hesitated, then added, "He told me last month he made arrangements. Said Kelly would be surprised." 3 days after the funeral, Kelly called a family meeting at the house. Emma and I sat on the couch where we used to watch movies with Dad. Kelly sat at the head of the dining table, a position Dad always occupied. She had her own lawyer with her, a man in an expensive suit who was not Mr. Harrison. Kelly folded her hands and began speaking. "Robert and I discussed this before he passed," she said smoothly. "As his legal wife of 3 years, I inherit the marital property." She slid papers across the table, the deed with her name on it, bank statements showing joint accounts, a life insurance policy. "The house is mine," She continued, "The business is mine. I am selling both." Emma started crying. "This is our childhood home," she said, her voice breaking. Kelly looked at her without sympathy. "Robert made his choice when he married me. You two are adults now. Figure it out yourselves." I stood up, my fists clenched. "Dad would never cut us out completely," I said. "There has to be more." Kelly smiled a cold, triumphant smile. "Check with his lawyer if you want, but I already know what is in the will." She stood and walked toward the door. "I expect you both out of here by the end of the month." Her lawyer followed her out, leaving Emma and me sitting in stunned silence. The house felt foreign suddenly, like it no longer belonged to us, like all our memories had been erased. The following week, I made an appointment with Mr. Harrison. His office was downtown in an old building with creaky wooden floors. I'd been there once before years ago when Dad updated his will after Mom died. Mr. Harrison was 65 with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He had handled Dad's legal matters for 2 decades. When I walked in, he smiled slightly. "Your father said you would come, Jake," he said, gesturing to a chair. I sat down heavily. "Kelly says she gets everything I told him," exhaustion in my voice. Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair. "That is what she thinks," he said. "But your father was smarter than she gave him credit for." He opened a thick file on his desk. "Robert came to me 8 months ago," he explained. "He said he had suspicions about Kelly." I felt my heart race. "He knew?" I asked. Mr. Harrison nodded. "Your father was observant. He noticed changes in Kelly's behavior after the 2nd year of marriage. He overheard phone conversations about money. He saw her researching the value of his assets online. But instead of confronting her directly, he decided to protect you and Emma quietly." Mr. Harrison pulled out documents and began explaining. "Your father put Kelly's name on the house deed, but he structured it carefully as joint tenants, not tenants in common. He created a separate trust for you and Emma that Kelly knew nothing about. He transferred 80% of the company shares into this trust. He left Kelly only 20% of Morrison Construction in the house." I stared at the papers, trying to process what I was hearing. The trust included $450,000 in cash from land Dad had inherited from my grandfather and sold quietly. It included 80% of Morrison Construction valued at approximately $600,000. It held Dad's collection of vintage watches worth around $50,000. And Dad had named Emma and me as beneficiaries on his retirement account, which contained $180,000. I did the math in my head. Emma and I were inheriting roughly $1.28 million. Kelly was only getting the house worth about $320,000, and her small stake in the company worth roughly $150,000, about $470,000 total. Your father said, and I quote, Mr. Harrison continued, "She married me for money, but she will not get the satisfaction." I felt tears forming. Dad had known all along. He had protected us even while pretending everything was fine. Mr. Harrison scheduled an official reading of the will. Kelly arrived with her lawyer confidence radiating from her. She wore a black dress and pearl earrings, sitting down like she owned the place. Emma and I sat across from her along with a few witnesses. Mr. Harrison began reading in his formal lawyer voice. "I, Robert James Morrison, being of sound mind and body," he listed the bequest to Kelly, the house and 20% of Morrison Construction. Kelly smiled satisfied, glancing at her lawyer with a look that said, "See, I told you." Then Mr. Harrison continued, "However, the remaining 80% of Morrison Construction, along with liquid assets, retirement accounts, and personal property, are held in the Morrison Family Trust." Kelly's head snapped up. What trust, she demanded. He never mentioned a trust. Mr. Harrison remained calm. "Established 8 months ago," he said. "Beneficiaries are Jake Morrison and Emma Morrison." Kelly shot to her feet. "That is impossible," she shouted. "We were married. I have rights." Her lawyer quickly scanned the documents Mr. Harrison provided and shook his head at her. "It is legal," he murmured. "He had the right to create the trust before his death." Kelly whirled toward me, her face red with fury. "You manipulated him," she hissed. "He was sick." "You took advantage." Mr. Harrison's voice turned stern. "Mrs. Morrison, I met with Robert multiple times over several months. He was completely lucid and made these decisions independently. Medical evaluations confirmed his mental competency." Kelly opened her mouth to argue, but Mr. Harrison was not finished. He pulled out a tablet and pressed play on a video file. Dad's face appeared on the screen, recorded 6 months earlier. He sat in Mr. Harrison's office looking directly at the camera. "I am making this video to ensure there is no confusion about my wishes," Dad said clearly. "I am of sound mind. I understand what I am doing. I am creating this trust to protect my children, Jake and Emma. Over the past year, my wife Kelly has shown her true intentions. I have overheard conversations about my assets. I have seen her research the value of my business. I have watched her isolate me from my children. I do not hate her, but I will not reward her for marrying me under false pretenses. Everything I built for my kids. They are my legacy, not her." The video ended. The room was silent except for Kelly's rapid breathing. Her lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. Mr. Harrison spoke again. "Additionally, Mr. Morrison hired a private investigator 2 months before his death. The investigator discovered that Mrs. Morrison remained in contact with her ex-husband. Text messages and emails suggest they planned to wait for Robert's death and then divide the assets. He placed printed emails on the table." Kelly's face went white. Her lawyer looked at the evidence and sighed. "Mrs. Morrison, you should accept what has been offered and leave quietly. If they choose to pursue fraud charges, this could become much worse." Kelly looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. "You think you have won?" she spat. I kept my voice steady, echoing words Dad had said to me long ago. "Dad won," I replied. "He protected his real family." Kelly grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. Her lawyer apologized quietly and followed her out. Emma and I sat there overwhelmed. After the meeting, Emma hugged me tightly and cried into my shoulder. "Dad really did protect us," she whispered. We stayed in Mr. Harrison's office for a while, watching the video of Dad again. Seeing his face, hearing his voice, it felt like he was there with us one more time. In the video toward the end, Dad looked directly at the camera. "Jake, Emma, I am sorry I could not tell you what I was doing. I needed to be certain about Kelly's intentions. I love you both more than anything in this world. Take care of each other. Make me proud." Those were the last words he recorded, the last message he left for us. Mr. Harrison handed me an envelope. "Your father left this for you," he said gently. Inside was a letter written in Dad's familiar handwriting, slightly shaky from his illness, but still legible. I read it aloud so Emma could hear. "Son, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I am sorry for the confusion and pain these past months caused. When I married Kelly, I truly thought I had found companionship. I was lonely after your mother passed. Loneliness can make us overlook warning signs. But I realized Kelly did not love me. She loved the idea of financial security. I do not hate her for it. Some people are just built that way, focused on survival rather than connection. What matters is you and Emma. You two are my legacy. You are proof that your mother and I did something right in this world. Use the money wisely. Take care of each other the way I took care of you. Make me proud, not by being rich, but by being good people. And Jake, find someone who loves you for who you are, not what you have. I made a mistake with Kelly, but I fixed it before it was too late." That is what fathers do. We protect our children even from our own bad decisions. I could not hold back the tears anymore. Emma took the letter from my shaking hands and read it again herself, crying quietly. We sat there in that office grieving all over again, but also feeling something else: gratitude, pride. Dad had fought for us in his own quiet way. 6 months passed. Kelly sold the house quickly and moved out of Portland. We heard through mutual acquaintances that she went to California, probably to start over somewhere. Nobody knew her story. Emma and I decided not to sell Morrison Construction. Dad had built that company from nothing, and it felt wrong to let it go. We hired a professional manager, someone Dad's employees respected. Once a month, Emma and I visited the office. The workers told us stories about Dad. Mr. Morrison was fair, one foreman said. He always paid on time, never shorted us. He remembered our kids' names, asked about our families. Hearing those stories made us realize how many lives Dad had touched. The company continued operating successfully, keeping the Morrison name. Emma used part of her inheritance to establish a charitable fund in Mom's name, helping families who lost parents in car accidents. She said it was what Mom would have wanted. I bought back our childhood home from Kelly, refusing to let a stranger own the place where we grew up. I spent weeks renovating it, repainting walls, fixing the porch where Dad used to sit with his coffee. I kept his bedroom exactly as it was, his reading glasses still on the nightstand, his favorite flannel shirt still hanging in the closet. Sometimes I sit in there just to feel close to him. Looking back on everything, I learned lessons I carry with me every day. I learned not to judge people too quickly by their surface charm, but I also learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. Family is not defined by marriage certificates or legal documents. It is defined by love demonstrated over years, through sacrifices made and promises kept. Dad was not perfect. He made a mistake trusting Kelly. But he corrected that mistake and he protected us until his final breath. That is what a father does. That is what love looks like. Today, when I meet someone new, I remember Dad's words. Watch what people do when they think no one is watching. Kelly thought Dad was naive, an easy target, but he was just quietly observing, gathering evidence, preparing to act. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the smartest one. And sometimes the best inheritance is not money at all. It is the lesson that love and loyalty cannot be bought, only earned. Have you ever experienced something similar in your own family? Maybe a situation where someone showed their true colors after a loved one passed? Drop your story in the comments. I would love to hear how you handled it. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need reminders that good people find ways to protect the ones they love, even from beyond the grave. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some comfort or wisdom. Take care of your families, and remember that real love always finds a way to win in the end.